Hey, I'm Sean Q, founder of Wealthier You, and this is the Wealthier You Show. All right, guys, today you guys are in for a huge treat. I am super excited to introduce a great friend of mine. I met her online at my 818crew.com Facebook group, Christian Entrepreneurs, Coaches, and Ministry Leaders. We ended up getting on a couple of phone calls, and she has blown my mind with how much insight, experience, and knowledge she has, not only just in entrepreneurship, but also in faith and applying principles of marketing, sales, in her business. I mean, she has such a wild success and also some pretty deep fails that we're going to learn so much from her. She specializes specifically in helping global leaders who are desperate to create a legacy of impact to use corporate sponsorships to design a business and life of abundance. She knows well the struggles of entrepreneurship, the search for community significance and need for financial stability that are unique to those who have dedicated their lives to the service of others. We are often misunderstood, and our ideas of global impact are dismissed as impossible. The Live and Give Abundantly system was born out of this deep understanding and need to create a significant and lasting impact on the world, while fulfilling the practical steps to acquire the influence, finances, and freedom to make it all happen. She not only teaches this system, but she puts it into practice as founder and CEO of a multi-level corporate sponsorship marketing agency. I'm incredibly excited to introduce Tai Aracen. Hey, Tai, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here with you.
Okay, so I know you and I have had a couple of conversations as far as your entrepreneurial journey. You have some really amazing successes and some really interesting and maybe even hurtful failures and mistakes that you've gone through. Give us a little bit of insight into what that journey was and how you overcame some of those hurdles.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the biggest thing that you need to know about me before I even launch into this is that I am ruthless. Like if someone tells me I can't do it, I'm going to do it. And so that's really led to a lot of the successes that I've had, but also the failures of not having that foundation there. So initially started out my career thinking I was going to be this really awesome attorney. Went straight from, high school into college and straight to law school. And was really hit really quickly with the practice of law that it was nothing like what I saw on television. And so I was really disappointed.
So no Law and Order.
No, and I love Law and Order. And honestly, that's what I was like so disillusioned. I was like, this is nothing like this. I was blessed to be working in one of the largest corporate firms in the nation. They recruited me straight out of law school. And so I had like all this cash and this prestige, and I was like rubbing shoulders with these big guys. And I was like, it was complete culture shock. I mean, there was just all kinds of illicit things going on in the office and things that were unethical. I was not prepared for that lifestyle. And I was very, very young. And so I said, you know what? If they're crazy and on drugs and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, I can certainly do this on my own. And so I decided I was going to start my own law firm. Well, that just was a complete failure. Wow. It never even got off the ground. I just, had a handful of clients before I went completely broke. And then really started to get into the online world and, what's available online? How can I connect to people? Where's all the money flowing? And kind of just felt my way through, honestly. And just how do I serve people? How do I use this passion that I have? I thought I was going to be a missionary. And so I was like going to be this really rich lawyer who was going to take half the year off and go do missions work. And, and just allowing God to really mold what he put inside of me, those seeds that he was starting to build and create and turn them into businesses that grew really, really fast. But as you know, the higher you are, the harder the fall is. And so just through some inexperiences and things like that, I had some big crashes. I mean, I had a business that within 4 months of inception we made $1 million, and I had this great team and everything. And literally on one weekend, we crashed and lost everything when I closed it down. So like you said, I've had some really great highs and some really great lows, and I'm learning to stabilize now.
Yeah. So, I mean, you just mentioned, in 4 months you went to $1 million. To a lot of my listeners, they're going to think, wow, if only I can do that. And yet in 1 week, it kind of all came crashing down.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you learned, not just about yourself or about business, but even about God and your relationship with your business and entrepreneurial lifestyle that you learned specifically in that moment where you're like, we're making $1 million, we're succeeding. And then also on the flip side, when you're like, we got to close down, we got to shut down.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things is that I learned that my faith in God had to be practical. It had to be, not just a God that I sat on the shelf, but literally I have these really big decisions to make that not only affect myself, but also my staff, and then my clientele. And, how do I allow God to work in this situation and still maintain the integrity of a Christian, but also my trust and faith that God would not lead me somewhere where he wasn't able to sustain me and to prosper me and just to help me do what I needed to do. So that number one built my faith. Knowing that God had a plan, even if I couldn't see it. And that God had a plan despite myself, despite my failures, despite everything that I've done wrong and done right, that God has a plan and his plan will always prosper. And then just realizing that I had no idea what I didn't know. I've always been intellectually very intelligent from a very young child. That was one of the highlights of my life, is everyone, oh, she's so smart. And I really took that to my head, and it began to create this persona or this ego of to who I was, and why God should be using me. And so having that crushed instantly almost really allowed me to this very raw realization of this vessel that God's created. And I have these talents, I have this intellect for a particular purpose. And if I'm not using it correctly, God is loving enough to tap me on the head and say, hey, no, not that direction. That was really one of the biggest lessons I learned from that experience. And just that there's a huge impact that God wants to make in my life, and it has nothing to do with money. And yes, money's needed to do some of the things that I need to do because it's a currency of our world, but God can create that in an instant. I don't need to struggle for it. We don't need to struggle for it. You don't need to struggle for it. If your path needs money, it's coming,
So, you kind of touched on this idea that, and I think a lot of high achieving listeners are going to resonate with this idea that we were the smart ones in the class. We were kind of the nerds. I know I was a total nerd, and I'm still a nerd. I mean, you see Star Wars and Superman everywhere in my background. Or in this idea that, well, everything's learnable. I remember when I was really young, kind of having this principle, I can learn anything. I can be anything. If I put my mind to it. And so how do we reconcile this ability to adapt and to learn with the idea that we also need to be reliant on God, right? I know for me, I can be so blinded by the idea like, oh, I can do this. And, well, wait, I need God to do this. In no way is it going to happen without him.
Yeah. Honestly, I still have that attitude of I can learn anything. But I think I've tempered that with the idea that even if I learn the maximum capacity of what's available in this world, that is nowhere near what I need to do what God wants me to do. And I think it's really been an expansion of my vision, because I can imagine pretty big things. I mean, I'm sure you can too, being visionaries and just being really smart and being really adaptable. I can imagine all kinds of things that I can accomplish with my own power. When I realize that just on myself, I can do that, imagine what I can do when I yield that to God. And to me, that's really expanded my vision so big that I'm just like, I'm not scared of anything anymore, because I know that even at my maximum capacity, God's like 5 million times bigger than that. And that's what he wants to do with us. And so That's kind of how I've tempered that ego, where I've just expanded the vision. So now I'm called to do a vision that's so much bigger than I can ever reach myself, which keeps me humble.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of a challenge that I was really struggling with maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Right out of high school, I could have gone to several universities, and I chose not to go to university, but I chose to intern at my church, and just go into ministry instead, because that's where I felt God had called me. And I fully believe that's where God had called me still, and I'm very grateful that I took that kind of step into that direction. But in the process of going to internship, seeing all of my friends go to university, graduate, then go to masters, and see this whole process of them qualifying themselves to do something, and me kind of working on my own as that entrepreneurial, making my own way. This idea that I'm not qualified to do something, so I have to prove myself, and really kind of took a root in my heart. And I remember God speaking to me. It was, I think I was driving home, and he said, the things I have called you to do, the world cannot qualify you to do. I will qualify you to do it. So whether you go to school or not, like, go to school, great. Whether you go or not, I'm going to still qualify you, and I'm going to give you the ability to do it. So maybe you're listening right now, and I think that really resonates with, maybe you feel unqualified. Maybe you don't feel like the smartest person in the class. Maybe you don't feel like a high achiever because you look at your past and you think, I'm just getting started. What would you say to that person, knowing that God qualifies every single person that he calls?
Well, the first thing is just understanding that foundational truth that we all have the same God. The same exact God that stretches my vision is available to each and every one of us to stretch our vision, and that there's certain characteristics and capacities that he's placed in us to complete our portion in the mission. And it's so, so important. Even if you feel like you're the little pinky toe, try walking without your pinky toe, or, these things are so important. And we as humans, we can't see the vision. We are incapable of seeing a big enough vision of what God wants to do for us to make those judgment calls about ourselves. And even the judgment in that area, I think, is ego, of saying I'm too small, I'm unqualified, I'm not. That's our ego. That's us. It's all about us. When we realize how big God is and that he's available equally to each and every one of us, we shouldn't have those problems with where do we fit in, what's my impact. Just really making sure that we're following that path that God set before us.
So kind of changing topics just a little bit. I know a lot of people who have been challenged with, okay, I'm in business, but I'm also a Christian. Is this ministry? Is this business? How do you mix the two? Are you supposed to mix the two? How have you kind of taken the approach with your own business and your own faith?
Wow, it's been and is an ongoing question more than anything. I've done both approaches where it's been completely 100%, this is my ministry, and I need to find a way to get paid from it kind of thing. Or I need to have enough faith to know that there's going to be dinner on the table. To, this is my business over here, and then this is my ministry over here. And then where I find myself right now is where there's a huge overlap. And I think that I can't say that one's right or wrong. I think it's really a process of what you're learning, what you're doing in your life, where God's leading you, and what you need to focus on. At different points in my life, I needed to focus just on traditional ministry. And then other times I needed to focus on traditional business. And now that I have both of those foundations, I feel I'm now able to walk in that merged capacity where my business is my ministry, and it provides very well for myself and my family as a lifestyle, but it also fuels some of those other things that I'm doing, those other ministries that I'm doing, those other giving projects that I'm doing. And I think it's an evolution of who we are as Christians, to get to that point.
Yeah. So this challenge kind of comes up is okay, God, I want to be a missionary, if you will, in the marketplace. I want to be an entrepreneur on purpose and with purpose. but I also want to be guided by you and not just the market, not just what I'm seeing as far as industry trends. I want to trust in you. And I think a lot of the foundation in that is relying on your prayer life. I don't know about you, but once I got into like business, my prayer life shot through the roof because I knew like, okay, God, I need you.
Right.
So going kind of into just everyday life, I know you're a mom and you're a wife. How do you balance? So we kind of talked about balancing faith and business. How do you balance family and business? I know being a newlywed, it has been a challenge. I'm going to be completely honest. It has been a total challenge finding the right balance of, I'm so passionate. All I want to talk about is business. All I want to think about is business. Come on, wife, come along with me. And she's totally not like the entrepreneurial. She's very much, I'm the risk taker, and she's the one who's like, come on back. It's okay. Let's not take that one. And so how do you balance family life and marriage with your tenacity and your willingness to not stop in business?
Well, honestly, I balance them horribly. And, I've come to the realization that more than a thing of balance is being sensitive enough to know when enough is enough in certain areas. And it's not a competition of, business and family and ministry. These are all things that are very important to who I am as a person, individually and collectively. And being able to be sensitive enough to the Holy Spirit and also my own needs and my family's needs, my husband's needs, my children's needs. It's a constant and continual process, a learning process. And I don't always get it right. I think, like I said, I'm just really conscious of being open to what needs to be done in this minute. It's never a question of this is more important or that's more important, but this is what I need to do right now, even if it hurts someone, myself or someone else, and being able to explain that to everyone. I think my children were born into this. Mommy was an entrepreneur before they were conceived, and so they know this. My husband and I have worked to this where we're both in this very understanding relationship of, I need to get this done right now, and I know that this is not ideal, but this is what we need to do because it supports our entire family and our entire ministry. So it's really a process of everybody involved, just understanding and setting those boundaries.
One of the things that I think me and my wife have done really successfully and are still working through is that form of communication of what's important right now versus what's valuable to us. So for my wife, us time is valuable. And so me making sure that I can finish everything and prioritize what she finds important, and I find important too, us time is important, versus what my natural inclination to go work, my natural inclination to think of a new strategy, to build a relationship with someone, kind of putting that and almost sacrificing that a little bit for us time. And then also finding that time where, okay, us time would be so good right now, but I need to do this. And it's almost like a daily choice and decision. Now, I mean, you are like the queen when it comes to corporate sponsorships. What is that? I have an idea, but give me a little bit of insight into what corporate sponsorships are and how it can apply to the business of somebody listening.
You stepped into my favorite topic just about. Corporate sponsorship, very simply, is merely connecting a corporation that is looking to spend their marketing dollars in a unique and very intimate way with someone who has a tribe, someone who has a following, someone who has a voice or a movement. How that's applicable to micro and small businesses is that even if we don't have, big lists or we're not talking to a lot of people, we are talking intimately to very specific people. And that's hard for very large companies to do. There's too many moving parts with them. There's too many decisions, and they crave that intimacy. And so that's really how I've been able to not only use corporate sponsorship to propel my own business, but also teach it to my clients and help my clients use it. is utilizing that need that corporations have to intimately connect with their potential consumers, and lend them essentially our platform, lend them our brand.
So how does someone get the attention of one of these mega businesses, being corporates? I'm sure there are several steps in the process to actually receiving the check that's signed. What would you say is the first step of deciding, okay, corporate sponsorship is the way to go, and then the first maybe 2 or 3 steps on what to do after you've made that recognition or decision?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is realizing that corporations are full of people, people just like you, people just like me, and being able to understand that we are connecting with people. They're real people. They have real problems. They have real lives. Um, and coming at it from a very personal and relationship-based idea makes it so much easier to navigate these fields. The biggest hurdle, honestly, is identifying who that person is. And social media and the online world has made it so simple for us to actually connect. So once you're able to identify who that real individual is, you can easily connect with them and build a relationship. And just like any other relationship, having a legitimate concern for who they are, what they're doing, what's important to them, that like there's no pushing the door open. They open the door for you and they invite you to sit down when that happens, because you have genuinely shown that you're interested in helping them and being a part of what they're trying to accomplish in the world.
So kind of going into every single person you speak to on that corporate level, understanding you're not speaking to the business. And I think that was a whole mind shift or mental shift that I made right now is, okay, you're not speaking to Walmart, right? Like you're not speaking to Target or whatever. You're speaking to a person who is employed by Walmart to distribute marketing budget. So what would you say are the perfect scenarios for corporate sponsorships? Because I'm going to assume there are a lot of people who could tap into those corporate sponsorships. They just don't know like that's an option for them.
Yeah. Anytime or anyone who is gathering people together, whether that's online or offline, that have similar properties. It could be 5 people, it could be 10 people, it could be 1,000 people. It doesn't matter where you're doing it or how you're doing it. If you're gathering similarly situated people together to hear you, to share with you, that's sponsorable. Just simply put. So that opens the door for everything.
Is sponsorable.
Yes, anything. Podcasts, book signings, large conferences, hula hoop festivals, toy drives, just about anything. It doesn't really matter the subject matter of why, or even the purpose of why people are gathering. It's the fact that they are, and that there's someone who is hosting. There's someone who's that voice, that expert, the host, that's able to transmit information to these people on a level that they understand and trust.
So I host an offline event called Wealthier You Live, where I bring, several people who are Christian entrepreneurs, really successful. They speak in front of my community. And I've never tapped into corporate sponsorship. So I'm assuming like that there's a whole lot of money there that I could be tapping into. But not only, it kind of also reminds me of churches. I know several churches, specifically my own church, who is doing like a backpack giveaway or a food drive or something like that. Is that a corporate sponsored kind of moment or event?
Yes, absolutely. And the really great thing is that sponsorship goes all the way to the top, those Fortune 100 companies, all the way down to very local companies. Any company that's interested in existing is going to put some effort or some resource into marketing. Even think of your own company. For those of you who have companies, micro companies are just starting. Even if you don't have a penny, you will put time into marketing your company because you want it to survive. So all companies, local companies, regional companies, global companies, all have some type of marketing resources. Not all of them can give them away, or all of them can allocate them to you, but just think of the millions of billions of resources available that are there just for the asking. So yeah, absolutely. Backpack drives, clothing drives, even, those charitable type things. And also just completely selfish events that have nothing to do with charity or helping the community. It's all available for sponsorship.
Okay, so I'm thinking, Wealthier You Live, or even the backpack giveaway my church is doing. There's so many different companies that are local. And this might be a very naive question, so maybe my listeners are like, Sean, that's an obvious question answer. Or maybe they're like, yes, thank you for asking. Okay, so there's a store down the street. I just walk in and introduce myself. Like, tell me a little bit of the process as far as getting the corporate sponsorship, or even asking for some of their money. I guess one of the challenges in my mind is the only thing they're getting is marketing. They're not getting any type of service from me. So, and maybe that's just a mental shift I have to make, of not just receiving money for a service, but also receiving, product money, whatever, in exchange for their name being on some type of, or their logo being on some type of product.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to help adjust your mindset a little bit, consider this. That same mom and pop company that sells backpacks, let's say, they want people to know that they're selling them, and they want people to come to their store as opposed to, say, Walmart that's in your area. They need to do some type of marketing in order for the community to know that they sell quality backpacks at a better price or better selection, or whatever their marketing advantage is over Walmart. They may do things such as newspaper, they may do radio, they may do Facebook. So they are actively looking to sell their backpacks, and they need to get the word out. How great is it when you come in and say, hey, I'm doing this awesome backpack drive, and the radio station's going to be there, the TV's going to be there, our church is going to be there, and they all have like 5 million kids. Could you, give us a couple backpacks? Could you give us $500? Could you just, give us some water or something, anything, so that we can then tell people that, hey, this mom and pop store gave us 500 cases of water while we're out here doing this backpack drive. And by the way, they sell backpacks. That's a kind of simplistic example, but that's exactly how it is. Everybody's marketing, everybody's looking for something. And the best way to figure that out is good old conversation. Ask them, what are you pushing right now? What's your biggest marketing struggle? How can I help you? What are you trying to sell?
So not only is my live event a service to the people in attendance, it's a service to local communities to be able to get their name out. That's amazing. That's awesome. So this is crazy, but those businesses are just like my business. They
Yay!
want So this is listening right now. If you're scared to go into a local mom and pop shop, go into a local Walmart, whatever the case is, right? Aim high, aim low. Go in knowing they're struggling sometimes with the same things you're struggling with. And if you can give them that solution of, I'm going to help you get your name out. I'm bringing people together. Is there anything you can offer me? Don't just think in terms of cash, but think in terms of product. So water, something that they're selling, maybe a promotion that they're pushing, then you become that solution, and they're more than likely and more than willing to give you and invest in your service, your event, whatever the case is. So, okay, Tai, I have to ask you, you mentioned that you went from $0 to $1 million in 4 months and then lost it all in a week. I mean, tell me a little bit about what you did specifically to make $1 million in 4 months, and how our listeners can do the exact same.
Okay, so not everyone can do the exact same thing, but you could totally use these principles. So I think I told you, excuse me, a little bit about how I decided that I wanted to be my own little law firm, and that completely flopped. And so I was like, just taking on projects, like literally I'd like, okay, I'll write that for $200, I'll write that for $300 just to make ends meet. And I started writing for this particular company that was helping individuals who were losing their homes to foreclosure. And I got really, really good at writing this very particular legal document, and understanding the nuances about it. And I started becoming pretty famous in the area for doing this. And so I decided that I could do this full time, and I did. I opened up my own foreclosure defense firm, essentially. And the line, like literally a week after we started, the line was all the way out the street. We literally had to get the cops to come to start direct fic.
Wow.
And during this is in the Bay Area now, in the Bay Area of California, where people are losing their $1 million homes that are 1 bedroom, by the way.
Sure, yeah.
They're losing their very expensive homes, and they're desperate. And I had, by the grace of God, a combination of knowledge that was very specific to helping people. And so people were coming in with $10,000 checks. That was how much it cost to work with me. And they were literally walking up and lining up with $10,000 checks. You can imagine how quickly
Wow.
accumulated cash, like literally. It was very, very quick. It was huge. It was like an overnight success. I had no idea how to run that type of business. I didn't know how to maintain inventory or staff. I was just hiring people as fast as I could. You know, obviously the money just kept flowing, and we just kept doing what we were doing, and we were really good at it. However, the laws changed overnight. So there was talk that the laws were going to be changing. And I heard it, and I was like, oh, that doesn't matter. Who cares? There's always going to be, you know, this flowing. Because I didn't know enough about marketing, I didn't know enough about business, saving, creating this longevity. When the laws changed on Friday, when we opened up on Monday, it was illegal to do what we were doing, how we were doing it.
Wow.
So I could actually keep doing what I was doing. I just couldn't accept money. And because I hadn't planned for this when I first heard about it, I knew that it would be a matter of 2 months before I would run out of money to pay my staff. And so I had to make a very quick decision on that Monday. Can I pay my staff out and let them go find new jobs? Or do I hang on to the last final moment? And it was a lot of prayer and a lot of, you know, ego. I literally sat my staff down and said, look, we can stop doing what we're doing today. I'll pay you guys all out for the next 6 months, and you can go find jobs. Everybody agreed wholeheartedly that was the best course of action. And we closed that day. It was
wow. Wow. Literally over the weekend, you
Yes.
went from a business that was thriving to a business that was incredibly, I mean, illegal.
Yeah. Well, the way we were doing, I mean, technically we could have kept doing what we were doing, but we couldn't accept checks.
I see.
So the law stated that at the time, as we understood it, that we had to complete the work that we were doing before we could accept anything, even a deposit.
Wow.
And having overhead, a staff, no savings, no longevity plan. It was just impossible. You know, it was just impossible.
That's insane. So, I mean, I could only imagine the turmoil and the dread of having to, one, humble yourself and say, okay, I have to talk to staff and let them know, like, we're done. And then also the amount of failure and even shame that can come with that. How did you overcome? I mean, how did you deal and handle those things? And what was it like having those types of conversations with your staff?
It was really difficult. You know, a lot of people were upset because I had awesome compensation packages. You know, it's just something about who I am and what I like to do. And so people were planning for their own future. They were planning for their own children. And, you know, I gave a lot of people opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have had. People that didn't have traditional education. You know, my criteria for hiring was a lot different than other people. I wanted someone who wanted to learn. And I was able to teach. And so a lot of these people were coming from blue collar jobs, and all of a sudden they were working in this really fast paced, high powered environment where they had decision making power. And so just, you know, they weren't only losing a paycheck, but they were losing some sense of themselves, who they were and who they were becoming. And a lot of them blamed me for it. And so those were a lot of hard conversations. And I took the time to mend most of those relationships. I mean, there was a couple that I just couldn't salvage, you know? I took a lot of time, a lot of personal time, just mending them, getting to know them and their families again, helping them back on their feet. You know, so I took it personally, and yeah, it was hard. It was hard.
So there are a lot of people, and I even remember myself at the very beginning thinking, I I just don't understand the law. I don't understand taxes. I mean, there's so many unknowns. What would you say to comfort the individual who wants to start a business but is afraid of all the unknown that's in front of them but they know they want to start their business?
Yeah, plug into a community. I mean, I
Mhm.
cannot stress that enough. Even if you have not two pennies to rub together, there are so many free or very low cost communities, such as, your community on Facebook. All kinds of, find an interest group, find someone, find a mentor, act like it's your job to find someone that's going to help you, because there's someone out there. Eventually you're going to have to get a paid coach, you're going to have to get a program, you're going to have to invest money, and good money, in yourself. But when you're starting out and when you're afraid, there's enough people and resources out there to hold your hand to get you past that hump, so that you're making your first $10,000, $20,000, so you can invest in growing your business. But there's no excuse nowadays with the internet, with social media. There's honestly no excuse.
That's so important. Build your community. Make sure that you are hand in hand, arm in arm, locked with people who have, one, been there and done that, and then number two, who are going through it with you. And I would even say somebody who wants to go and you're a little further, lock arms with them, because they need you just as much as you need them. So that's awesome. Okay, my next question. There's somebody listening right now. Maybe they're at the gym, they're listening, they're picking up their kids, and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to Tai. Like, how do I get more information from her? Where do we find you, and how can we get more from you?
Yeah, so the easiest way to find me is my name, Tai Aracen. And I'm sure you'll have some session notes or something, so everyone knows how to spell my crazy last name. But you can go to myname.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm in LinkedIn. I'm all over the place on social media. And I love to answer any questions that you have, because my main goal really, it's called 8 by 18. And that's that I want to help 8 people make 8 figures by 2018. And not just any type of people, but people who have a passion to use these fundings and these finances to build something great, to build a movement, to build a legacy. And so, even if you're starting small, if you have questions on building a business, marketing a business, connecting with corporate sponsors, free money, anything, please reach out to me. I am usually making myself available to people so I can just help you. That's really my goal. That's my mission. That's my ministry.
That's awesome. So that's Tai Aracen. That's TAIARACEN.com. And that'll be in the show notes as well, so you guys can just click it. But if you're like, I need it right now, it's TAIARACEN.com. Tai, thank you so much. You are absolutely fantastic. I mean, you've gone from 4 months to $1 million to losing it all in a weekend to the place where you are doing incredibly well and helping other people make. I mean, that's huge. 8 by 18. That's huge. So I'm incredibly excited to see you continue pursuing that God-given dream and that God-given potential that is within you. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. It's been such an honor and a pleasure.
All right, guys, that's our show. Thank you guys for listening and tuning in. You can find all the show notes, all the links, and all the resources that were mentioned in this specific show at wealthieru.org. And if you haven't yet bought my book, you got to get it. onlinewealthbook.com. It is absolutely fantastic. Grab your copy, onlinewealthbook.com. I'll see you guys. My name is Sean Q, founder of Wealthier You. Have a great day.